Hey everyone, welcome back to Cody Tarot. I'm your tarot reader, Cody. So for today's pick a card, this is a suggestion. This is a suggested reading by one of my viewers, one of my subscribers. I think she subscribed. Anyway, or he. I actually don't know if this person's a male or a female. Which is interesting because that brings me to today's reading. This is all about balancing the masculine and feminine energies within yourself or for yourself. So that's what the reading is going to be today. How do I balance the masculine and feminine energies within me? So if you're looking to get a general sense of like stasis or balance with kind of like the yin and the yang, this is going to be the reading for you. We're going to be going over different parts and different piles of different masculine and feminine energies. This is all going to be within yourself though. Okay, so let's get into the piles before us. So our first pile is blue kyanite. First group one, is blue kyanite. Our second group two, is this Labradorite. Group three is the spirit quartz. And group four is Chrysoprase. All right, you can take all the time you need to pick your crystal. Pause the video here if you need to. Sometimes it helps to take a big deep breath in and exhale, and then look at the crystals and pick the one that stands out the most to you. All right, with that said, we're going to move on with the first group, group one with the blue kyanite. Hey, you guys, welcome to your reading. So, I pre-drew the cards for this pile. I'm using these decks today. I'm using the Angelarium Oracle of Emanations, and specifically I wanted to use this deck, the Mango Tarot deck, because all the genders in the cards are switched. So I thought it'd be perfect for this reading. So all the men are female and all the female are men than you would have in the traditional Raider White system. And then also I'm using this deck I got off of Kickstarter a while ago called The Witch's Familiar Runic Oracle. So let's get into your reading. So your first card is Angel of Visions. Your first rune is Gibo. And your second rune is Thurziaz. So we have the masculine on this side and the feminine on this side, and we're going to see how they're going to be balanced. So we have Four of Wands over here, and we have the High Priestess over here, which is actually the Hierophant. Then on this side, we have the Pentacles card, Eight of Pentacles, and Queen of Pentacles. Interesting. I planned for this side to be the masculine side and this side to be the feminine side, but what I'm seeing actually is that this side is more the feminine side and this side is more the masculine side. Because it's a little bit different when it's swapped on how if you came to this reading, you might have different aspects of your personality like in different areas. So for example, you might have a more masculine side of your personality and a more feminine aspect, like things that were traditionally female or things that females should do that are more in the feminine aspect. You might have more masculine qualities, and vice versa. You might have more feminine qualities and masculine aspects. So for example, let's just go with team sports or something where you have to be a go-getter, or you have a lot of yang energy. I definitely see that you might have a more feminine nature when it comes to sports or stuff like that. But then when it comes to say relationships and kind of being on the receiving end of a relationship, you take charge in the realm of feelings. Okay, let's see. There is an element with your masculine side where there is there's an element of material prosperity. So wanting to provide for yourself or your family. There's a very grounded energy with your masculine side. So when you are being very yang energy, it's a very slow moving energy. So you want to keep that in mind. So when you're trying to balance the feminine and the masculine, when you're dabbling in your masculine side, you want to be aware that it's a very slow moving energy. It's a very slow moving energy, but at the same time, a very inspiring energy. Thurziaz is the kind of the rune that I see as the rune of inspiration. Another thing, we have a lot of interesting symbolism with 2 full moons here. Some of these cards have different like types of moons on them, and you have 2 full moons, which means you're actually at kind of like the peak of both your masculine and your feminine natures coinciding and balancing. One way to balance these 2 sides of your natures is with Angel of Visions and also with the Priestess here, which is traditionally the Hierophant, but I'm definitely seeing like a visionary aspect to your personality. So especially with this being in the middle card and this being the feminine side, bringing in a little bit more of those intuitive foresight or intuitive visions, or bringing that intuition into the masculine, is going to help you balance the energies out. So, for example, next time you think about moving forward with a project or a financial endeavor, or working on like managing your money, it might be good to like go within and get intuitive insights, or meditate, or find that calm, still center within you to bring those visions and those understandings into the financial sphere, where you're like doing all your like work activities, basically. With 4 of Wands, we're seeing here that the feminine side of your nature is just like very flourishing, is very flourished and developed and very like in balance, but it's like the masculine side that needs to come into play and get kind of like a grip on things. So what is actually needed, interestingly enough, is to not overemphasize the masculine side, but bring some of the feminine side into the masculine. So use some of that receptive energy to kind of create the yang energy to move forward. So what do I mean by that? This receptive energy with Gibo here, this is a representative of a gift. So it might mean that like you actually find more prosperity than when it's like when you use your masculine side, you're like trying to create prosperity. But with Gibo over here, it's almost as if like you get more prosperity by just using your feminine side. And so you kind of rely on that. With 4 of Wands here, I'm definitely seeing that this is a good positive omen for your feminine nature being intact and in tune. And it's also interesting. I'm definitely seeing where your like passionate side is more your feminine nature. So in intimate settings or in relationships, I definitely see you kind of like taking like a back seat in the physical domain of a relationship, but maybe in like the relationship aspect of the domain, like I mentioned earlier, like building reciprocal feelings and stuff, you take more of a masculine approach. So very, very interesting. Also, I'm not so much seeing that you need to bring masculine into the feminine side of yourself, that your feminine side is very pronounced, but the masculine side, it's almost as if you need a little bit more inspiration to like move or make movement with the masculine side, just because the Pentacles are such a slow moving energy. I'm seeing that with the 8 of Pentacles, there's an element of getting creative with yourself to create more masculine energy. So it's about bringing the visions. I wouldn't be surprised if people in this pile are artists, but it's about bringing the visions of your feminine side into the creativity of your masculine side, basically. Yeah, there's a lot of imagery of women on these cards, like with the 4 of Wands, the Priestess, and the Queen of Pentacles. So I'm definitely seeing there's a lot of elements of the feminine side being pronounced, and maybe you need to work a little bit more on the masculine side. So going in tune with your visions is going to help you, and going in tune with your intuition, and maybe meditating or doing third eye meditations where you open your third eye and see what is being like shown to you, is going to help you kind of create the necessary steps to take action in the world. It's interesting, you just relied on your feminine side so much that you actually receive financial gifts from people all the time without actually moving your own financial energy forward. And I just want to be clear, your masculine side is going to be a slow moving energy. Don't expect your masculine side to be very fast paced or, or tumultuous or energetic or fiery. In that regard, it moves forward. It's very much yang energy, where it moves forward and is assertive in the world, but it's a very slow paced assertion, I guess is the best way to put it. There is an element of like holding on to what you have. This is definitely it's interesting. This is your more stable side, but at the same time, it's your more, it's just less used, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's going to be more like out of touch, out of practice. Yeah, I think that about covers it. As far as blending the two together, what we have right here is bringing in a little bit of your artistic nature of like painting, drawing, creating, making things, is going to bring out more of your masculine side. And then also being like intuitive with the visions is going to help integrate that feminine side over into the masculine side. So I hope you enjoyed that reading. If you like the reading, you can like or comment below. If you really like the reading, and subscribe to my channel. I post pick-a cards like this pretty frequently, once every 1 to 2 weeks. And with that said, we're going to move on to the next group, group 2, with the Labradorite. Hello, group 2. This is if you picked the Labradorite. Welcome to your reading. One thing you might be noticing first is that some of the cards are flipped up already. I haven't revealed them yet, but that's because when I'm shuffling, if a card flips out of the deck and it's like very obvious it's there, I'm not gonna like reveal it, I guess, because the ones that I reveal are the ones that I pull from the deck and I don't know what they are. But these ones all flipped out very strongly, just like flipped out of the deck. So they're very important messages or overarching themes. As far as the decks I'm using the Angel Arium Oracle of Emanations, then this Witch's Familiar Runic Oracle that I got on Kickstarter, and then this deck, this Manga Tarot deck. This is actually my oldest tarot deck I've owned. It was the first deck I bought in my... I used to have a deck when I was like, a 10 or 11, but this is the first deck I bought when I turned like 15 or 16. And yeah, when I lost my other deck. And yeah, it's just, it has the thing about this that I want to use for this reading in particular is all the male characters are female. Like, for example, in this Princess of Swords, she's riding a whale. This is supposed to be a knight, but because the knights are women in this deck, and all the male cards are women and all the female cards are men. So I thought that'd be interesting for balancing the masculine and feminine sides of your nature. Okay, so let's get into your reading. Let's flip over your rune cards. We have Anzus and Iwas. Okay, I can definitely see there's some interesting things going on here. So in order to balance both of your sides, first I want to point out that this first card right here, the root, the connection, Yesod, it's reminding me of the root chakra. And it's also reminding me that grounding yourself is going to be very important when you're dealing with your feminine side. Because I'm definitely seeing right here that with your masculine side, it's very much in effect and in power and kind of more dominating your personality, whereas your feminine side needs to be brought into more alignment. So what I mean by that, so first of all, we have the Emperor and the 10 of Cups, which just means that you are going to be a great paternal figure. So whether you are male or female, your fatherly instincts, your more masculine paternal instincts are very much in favor here, and very much have been growing steadily and surely and kind of are at the forefront of your personality. So we definitely have with the Emperor, there's like, you provide a lot of structure to your life for people, and you would, and probably if you ever have children, you'll probably provide structure to those children. And also Anzus, this is the rune that represents, like, for example, I think this eye is representative of Odin's eye, because Odin in Norse mythology loses an eye. And he also has 2 ravens, Hugin and Mugen, which are representative of thought and memory. So there's also this interesting element of like being Odin, or the patriarch of the whole like kind of godly system. So you might be in a position of a leadership position where you govern a whole bunch of people and you treat them with the utmost care and respect and provide structure in their lives. With especially, I'm not seeing so many tyrannical tendencies with the Emperor. There's definitely more of a fatherly or paternal aspect, because with the 10 of Cups here, that really represents kind of like a happy home life or a happy family. So even if you don't ever balance out these energies completely, there's always going to be this element that you're always going to bring to the table, this like really provider, fatherly mentality. And remember, this is also, even if you are a woman, if you're more feminine, you have more of this masculine kind of caretaking nature in you, right? And that's where the yang energy is coming from. It's basically this energy that is very active in taking care of people, is the best way to put it. Now, on the feminine side over here with your feminine energy, it's a little out of balance. One thing we have here with Iwas, with this cat, and then also with the Strength and the Princess of Swords card. They're both on different animals. So Strength is about him like taming this dragon. Interestingly enough, it's really about looking it straight in the face, and even though there's like the fear that this dragon could blow fire on his face, right? Because it's a dragon. He just is looking inside the dragon's mouth, I don't know, he's like, maybe like checking him for like tonsillitis or something. Maybe this Strength guy is a doctor. But there's also with this Princess of Swords energy is an aspect of riding the creature, riding the beast. So there's an aspect of taming the beast and riding the beast. And so there's all this kind of aspect of the fact that your feminine nature might be a little, have more of kind of like a wilder side to it. So even though your paternal side is very like calm and steady and kind of like very caretaking and nurturing, interestingly enough, in a very, assertive, forward-moving way, on your yin energy where you're receiving things, you have more of a wilder nature. So if someone is like giving something back to you or attacking you from the outside, or you're receiving yang energy from the outside, you might be very reactive. You might have kind of more of a reactive mindset where it's kind of like the beast within comes out. And that's where it's kind of like you want to kind of tame your inner demon, so to speak, or your inner beast. Interestingly enough, we have Iwas here with this little kitty sitting on this skull. And I'm definitely seeing there is an element of kind of like with the cat here, that there's something bringing up with the Strength and the cat over here, where the Strength card traditionally has a lion. So there is an element of kind of like a sense of, I don't know if fickle is the right word. There is a sense of kind of like hot and cold behavior with your feminine side. So as far as like romantic situations and people approaching you or presenting you with kind of a more masculine approach to romance, I definitely see that you appreciate that with your feminine side, because I see that your feminine side is the more side that is like into the romantic side of things. You appreciate those things, but it's almost like you don't know how to handle them, or you kind of shut off, or you turn on or off based on like what your mood is for that person, based on whatever the beast within is kind of doing. And that's where some grounding is going to help, because it's interesting. You provide the stability and structure to others. And when you're using your yang energy, you're definitely very grounding to those around you. But I'm definitely seeing when it comes to receiving and like being grounded yourself, it's almost like very difficult. And so that's kind of like one of the things that's going to help you get in tune with, or rebalancing your feminine side with your masculine side. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing the masculine side is just a-okay. Like you don't have to worry about developing it anymore. Like the side of you that is that strong, kind of paternal, caring, giving figure is very much in tune. It's just that right here with Princess of Swords, it's almost like your feminine side is a little all over the place. But really, if you take charge and you kind of attack it head on, and you work on kind of like taming the beast within, this can be in different ways. Like with the Strength card, this can represent like talking to yourself gently and like kindly when something like this happens. Like, okay, well, why did you react this way when you receive this kind of yang energy? I'm specifically saying this with romance mainly, but it could be in other areas of your life as well. But when you're receiving the yang energy, kind of like going within and like taming the beast before you react. So kind of like before you have a chance to like think a thought or say something that is like kind of more on the what's the word, animalistic side, to go within and kind of like ask yourself and be like, hey, calm down, like don't worry. Just like an owner, like when they have their, well, I guess someone corrected me in the comments recently because I used a dog metaphor and they're like, I don't own a dog, I have a dog, which is so true, very true. Anyway, if you have a dog, just like when your dog starts barking at different people or something and you kind of hush them up, you say, oh, stop it, or, that kind of thing. So you're kind of like when your inner animal comes up, it's kind of like about taming that inner animal and kind of talking to them gently and kindly and making sure they know that they're loved and there's no real threat from that yang masculine energy coming in towards them. Yeah, I think that's about the reading I got for you on how to balance your masculine and feminine energies. If you like the reading, you can like or comment below. If you really like the reading, you can subscribe to my channel. I post pick a cards like this pretty frequently, like once every 1 to 2 weeks. With that said, we're going to move on to the next group 3 with the Spirit Quartz. Hello, group 3, if you picked the Spirit Quartz. So, really quickly, I wanted to cover the decks that I'm using. I'm using an Angelarium Oracle of Emanations deck for one of the linking factors. I'm also, with these cards, I'm using this Manga Tarot deck. It's a pretty old deck of mine. And the interesting thing about it is all the male characters in traditional Raider White are female and all the female are male. So it's a very interesting kind of like deck, I think, for balancing masculine and feminine energies. So I decided to use it for this reading. Lastly, I'm also going to be using this Witch's Runic Oracle, which I got off Kickstarter. So let's flip over your cards. These three, just to be clear, these three flipped out of the deck like automatically. So it's definitely something Spirit wants us to notice. And there were 3 of them flipped out. I've only been pulling like 2 for these cards, but I just put the 3rd one down here in between these as like more of another integration card for like how to integrate the 2 sides. So how to balance the masculine and the feminine. So let's flip over these cards first. We have Hod, left leg, submission. Then for your runes, we have Ingwas, Wunjo, and down here we have Kenaz. Okay, interesting. I can already see what's going to happen right here. And then for this side, we have the Lovers and the 6 of Cups. And on this side, we have the Priestess or the Hierophant and the 2 of Swords over here. So now you can see the 2 of Swords, the male, and well, the Lovers, I mean, yeah. That's the male then, and that's the female, I guess. Okay, so getting into your reading. This is a very interesting spread because I'm seeing like a few things that are, it's taking me a little bit to figure this one out. But okay, let's get into it. So first of all, what we have here with the Lover's card and the 6 of Chalices and Ingwas over here, we have an element where there's been a thing with your inheritance or your family where you kind of grew up with a very loving family environment. And I'm specifically seeing that it's interesting because we have almost like there's like a integration of your masculine and feminine sides in like one department of your life. So it's almost like you're using your masculine or feminine side to do both roles. And I'm seeing it as more as like your feminine side, but it's almost like it's almost weird. It's like you are integrated with both sides of yourself, but it's like there's like something missing and you kind of see that there's that something missing. And with submission, it's almost showing me that like one side is like submitting to the other. So it's like on one hand, you have this dualistic nature where you're really happy with, I want to say this is your feminine self, but to be honest, I'm not quite clear which one's the feminine and masculine in this particular pile. It's not showing up like that. The reading's just not reading like that. It's just kind of like this side versus this side. So I'll let you decide which one is the more masculine side or the feminine side. Either way, the result after this reading will hopefully that you will be able to balance both sides of your nature. Basically, they're both pushed into one side over here. And we have the Lover's card and the 6 of Chalices. There is an element of like being your own perfect partner. And what I mean by that is there's this element that you've probably been working on yourself since childhood where you kind of have a dualistic nature to one side of your personality. So if it's your feminine side, it's almost like your masculine side is like in a relationship with that feminine side. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but it's also really integrated. I mean, it represents like an integration of both of your sides. So it's almost like when you receive, you also project, or when you project, you're also receiving. It's like they're happening simultaneously. So instead of just having one kind of alternating, like receiving at some points and having more of the feminine at some points and then having the masculine at other points, they really are almost already like very integrated. So what do I mean by this? Yeah, it's interesting because even on this side, it's like I'm seeing this as maybe more your masculine side and this is more your feminine side, but even your masculine side is in defense mode. So it's almost like they need to swap places. It's like your feminine side is basically reaping all the rewards and the benefits and lives a very, very happy life. It's like within your feminine nature, it's almost like you're very happy and content. But within your masculine side, you're kind of like deflecting attacks or deflecting blows. So one thing here, especially with the Two of Swords, I imagine this guy kind of catching swords that are being thrown at him, and he's blindfolded, so he can't see where they're coming from. But your feminine side's like very integrated. I definitely see that like you might be very, very attractive in relationships. You might have a very charismatic personality, or a personality that kind of is really like lovable by those around you. And you've probably had this personality since childhood, but that's because there is an element that like you bring that wholeness to situations. So whether someone else is masculine or feminine, or has more of a masculine or feminine nature, you bring like a wholeness to them, and you can kind of adapt with your feminine side and bring different aspects to them in those different realms. So for example, your yin side, or your receiving side, kind of like has a quick projection outwards to kind of create more of a masculine atmosphere when it comes to interacting with people. But your masculine side is actually very subdued in this situation. We have submission here. And it's interesting, if you bring this side to light, which is kind of like following with the Hierophant over here, there's like a more traditional way of following masculine things. So like participating in very like stereotypical masculine stuff, like either team sports or strategy games or video games, or stuff that has very yang energy, or just being a little bit more active or go-getter without kind of having to be active and go-getting within specifically in regard to just relationships. It's kind of like you're submitting to your role in a relationship. So if you are with someone who's like actually just kind of more submissive in a relationship, you would be more yang energy, but that is still yin energy. If you're receiving what they are like and you're kind of reflecting it back to them, if that makes sense. So you are more developed in your yin, your receiving energy. The thing is like when you're dealing with someone who's like yin, you're more masculine. When you're dealing with someone who's more yin, when you're dealing with someone who's more yang, you're more receptive. So it's one of those things where you're kind of like playing a role here with your feminine energy. That's kind of where we're going with this. But your masculine side just directly kind of more along the lines of like what you want. You might be the type of person who kind of received a lot of things sent from like childhood and had like a very happy family life. Your family provided a lot for you. But what we're seeing here right here is there's this aspect of like breaking away and seeking what you truly desire and what your inner self wants and who you truly are as a person on the inside, and what we're seeing here is to like get involved with that, or to help break you out of that kind of cycle of just kind of like that yin receiving energy. It's good to, make sure the camera's still on. It's good to, instead of kind of like deflecting and catching all these things that this side of yourself is like doing, it's going to be good to participate in like traditional kind of masculine activities. And this is Kenzaz is kind of coming over here to kind of represent how you feel towards this masculine side of yourself. It's almost like you push this masculine side of yourself down, or you don't deal with it because you're worried that the torch is going to come over and light up this perfect situation you've got going on over here. Like this to me seems like it's interesting. This is kind of like one of those readings too, where you will benefit from integrating both sides of your personality, but this probably could go on quite happily for like many years and you would be very, very fine and okay. You could live a very fulfilling life with just your feminine side kind of using, like kind of imitating your masculine side, so to speak. But I definitely see that with dealing with your masculine side and just indulging in it a little bit, you're not going to like light a torch and kind of like ignite the feminine, but on quite the opposite with this book here, you'll understand yourself a little bit better through participating in more masculine activities and getting into maybe some sports or strategy games or something along those lines. You'll find a real joy in those things. I definitely see with Wunjo. This is a card about joy, and this is linked with the 2 crescent moons. These cards are linked, so traditional masculine activities are going to bring you a lot of joy, more than you thought you could with this kind of situation you have going on with your, which is a very happy situation too. It's almost like it's just going to add on to the better. Like what you have is just going to become better is basically what I'm saying. So yeah, that is how you want to. It's interesting because I definitely see you have a good thing going on. So it's one of those things where it's like this is probably not super relevant to like work on this right now if you're like worried about like you don't have time or you don't want to work on it right away. It's not totally relevant you work on it right away, but if you do choose to work on it and you do want to bring that aspect into your life, this is really going to help bring that balance. You can start integrating your yang energy in reaction to people's yin energy instead of using your own yin energy to like receive and react, basically. Man, I hope this reading made sense. This is very complicated, but very interesting reading for sure. Very interesting indeed. So if you like the reading, you can like or comment below. If you really like the reading, you can subscribe to my channel. I post pick a cards like this pretty frequently. With that said, we're going to move on to the last group, group 4, with the Chrysoprase. Hello, group 4. If you picked the Chrysoprase, I try not to pick this one up because it like falls over so easily. Okay, so this is going to be a reading on how to balance your masculine and feminine energies. So the decks I'm using today is the Angelarium Oracle of Emanations deck. I'm also using this deck down here, which is the Tarot Manga deck. And the interesting thing about the Tarot Manga deck is all of the genders of the cards are switched. So all the male cards are represented as female and all the female cards are represented as male. So interestingly enough, it's a cool deck to balance your masculine and feminine energies because the two are kind of already integrated within the deck. And then also I'm using with this Witch's Familiar Runic Oracle, which I got off of Kickstarter, and I'm going to be using that today as well. Okay, so let's get into your reading. Let's flip over your rune cards. You have Birkenau and you have Uruz. It's interesting already. I haven't flipped over the other cards yet, but already Birkenau is a very traditionally feminine card and Uruz is more of a masculine card. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, interesting reading. So, okay, let's get into it. So first of all, we have Birkenau. Well, I'm seeing these two cards, Birkenau and the Sorceress, which is the Magician card in the traditional Raider White deck. There is an element that, like, with your feminine energy, you are very... Even though the Magician is supposed to be more of like a masculine energy, like a yang, like manifesting and having the tools and preparing and moving forward, and it's more like the high priestess that's like the intuitive receiving the energy. I'm definitely seeing here with your feminine side is a very kind of like active, assertive side to it. Interestingly enough, it's all about pulling things in and receiving them, just like yin energy is, the feminine. But it's almost, how do I put this? You're like throwing the ball out there just to receive, if that makes sense. So it's interesting. Your yin energy, your feminine energy is very like, kind of like just more dominant, more active, spiritually speaking. You could be very proficient with like spiritual things. I'm definitely seeing that with Birkenau, which is a very fertile card. It represents like birth and fertility, and also with this Sorceress, this Magician card, that you're a very brilliant manifester. You know what you're doing. You can easily get things that you want to achieve in life. Yeah, it's a very strong connection there with your yin energy. Interestingly enough, we have your masculine side, your masculine energy, which is not quite in balance at this point. It's interesting because it's weird because this Angel of Sky is reminding me of like an angel or someone looking out for you or watching over you. And going back to this energy, which I usually associate the Magician with a more masculine energy, but it is feminine in this reading, because with this Angel of Sky, it's almost as if like instead of manifesting, it's almost like you're communicating with higher forces that are like bigger than yourself. And they're providing the yang energy and you're just kind of receiving it. It's like they're providing the gifts and the abundance. It's almost like you're in a relationship with the universe, and you're in a relationship with the universe's yang energy. So your spiritual side, which is very yin, is receiving all these gifts from the yang energy of the universe, interestingly enough. So with your masculine side, what I'm seeing is... First of all, with Uruz, this is like a card about strength and being like a strong person and being like a stable person and being able to endure life's hardships or the things that life throws at you. It makes sense that you don't need to use this side as much because you're in kind of this like beautiful relationship with the universe where they like help you with all of these things and kind of are providing for you on the regular. So it seems like you live a pretty good life, pretty much. So what about this side? So let's get in tune with this. It's just that without the masculine side here, it's almost like you're a little lonely. This Four of Pentacles card in particular in this deck represents kind of like loneliness or being like stuck inside on like a beautiful day, almost like a held captive mentality. It's like your masculine side's being held captive. Interestingly enough, the way you get out of this is through temperance, which is, it means two things right now. It's representing like, first, because this guy is like, he's clothed, he has like a loincloth on, but he's like somewhat naked. It represents revealing yourself to others, like revealing the side of yourself that is more yang energy to others. And also, temperance also is representative of like an angel in the traditional deck. And so it also represents like providing those gifts to other people. So it represents like a balancing of like your spiritual self where you're receiving spiritual gifts from the universe versus like where you are actually going out of your way and providing those spiritual gifts to other people. So it's almost like when other people manifest, like you're the divine yang source that's coming to them. You're the divine masculine that's kind of going and giving them what they need, and they're the yin force receiving it, you know? So it's kind of like what you're going to grow into. I don't know if this is necessarily like a balancing thing. It's just kind of like what's kind of the natural course of events. It's almost like you're going to start imitating this angel of the sky and be more of a yang influence with the people around you and your loved ones and people who are receiving that energy. Another way to get in touch with this kind of yang divine energy within yourself and pulling that from yourself to influence your environment. One way to like bring that together is with temperance. There's also an element of like balancing your habits, like your dietary habits, like eating in moderation, kind of like doing things only when necessary, but also maintaining your sensual side. So maintaining your side in connection with like your intuition and your senses. Like this guy's touching the water. It's a very sensual thing where he's just kind of feeling this waterfall. He's just doing it just to feel it. So it's about being in tune with the senses and not kind of like overindulging in food or drink or like under eating in food or drink, like being in the sensory world and being like really appreciative of it, like really kind of tasting what you're eating or really kind of experiencing what you're experiencing, feeling the reward and not going into excesses or being a slave to it or like kind of like just not using it at all. And then also right here with the Seven of Pentacles, this is a card about investment typically, and she has these kind of pentacles in a little treasure chest. So really think of all these things the universe is giving you as like spiritual currency, like investment, like you're receiving gifts from the universe and you're manifesting these things and the universe is giving you that yang energy and you're receiving with your yin energy. There is an element of like storing up those presents basically from the universe and kind of like getting like a spiritual, how do I put this? Like build up within you of spiritual energy that you're later going to use with the strength, providing strength for others basically, and coming out of this isolation to give gifts to others. I definitely see that's going to help you also be more social by providing certain things to other people. It's going to bring in more contact with your, and it also, Four of Pentacles, interestingly enough, is a card about like holding on to things in the traditional tarot of conserving money or resources. So this could be also with like your resources, like your spiritual resources, like giving spiritually back to the community, helping them along those ways. It's going to get you out of that mentality of like conserving basically. So yeah, so that was how to balance the masculine and feminine energies within yourself. If you like the reading, you can like or comment below. If you really like the reading, you can subscribe to my channel. I post pick-a cards like this pretty frequently, usually once every 1 to 2 weeks. Try to post more lately. But with that said, that was the last reading for today. I will see you guys in the next pick-a card. It was fun reading for you. Bye. Have a good day.